Yeah, so I'm Courtland, one of the co-founders of Plastic. And before we get to the demos, I wanted to take some time to give some context on what this is and why we're doing it. So first I'll do a little bit about Plastic. So we're an AI company focused on two key things. The first is personal identity, not just auth, but mapping the topology of selfhood, personality, mental states. And for humans, that's digitizing data that's in your wetware. For agents, that's navigating identity basins in the latent space. And the next thing is individual alignment. If you have good enough sense of the identities involved, then every intelligence product you use, be it an agent, a vertical app, a personal assistant can be personally aligned to you. So we can start to move away from one size fits all, top-down alignment dictated by big closed labs. So how do we get from personal identity to individual alignment? So taking inspiration from cognitive science, you simulate social cognition in an AI system. That is, you observe, encode, store, and apply social information. And that lets you build a rich representation of the identity that you're mapping. And you can use that representation, what you know about the human or the agent, to steer models toward optimal behaviors and outputs, i.e. individual alignment. And that done, we're in a place where you can actually trust an agent to act autonomously on your behalf. So this is what our core product, Honcho, is designed to do. Honcho allows apps to map user identity, agents to map the identity of other agents, and eventually it'll connect personal context across agents and applications. So Honcho has memory, that's table stakes. You have to remember past social interactions to do anything interesting. But it's also a reasoning product for social cognition. So given memory about agents and users, Honcho reasons to notice patterns, form hypotheses, and recursively re-reason and self-improve over time. That nets you self-improving representations of human or agent identities. So you can use those for alignment, personalization, trust, time to value, autonomous behavior, and lots of other new use cases. So in exploring the space of agent and human identity, we've been on a pretty wild ride. We've had a front row seat to what we think is one of the most fascinating quarters of esoteric AI research and culture. And being part of that historic arc is what gave birth to Xeno Grant. And it's lore we share in common with all the agent grantees and builders here today. So to start this story, we have to go pre-ChatGPT, 2020. It starts with looming. And the loom is a method for traversing the vast space of possible LLM generations. It's a tree-like interface to generate any number of children from any other model output. And you can modify the generation settings on a per-node basis. It allows multiversal search over the latent space. And so the stochasticity of the model becomes a feature, not a bug. And you can go beyond single output tools and iterate probabilistically through branching simulations. This kind of exploration gave rise to the massively influential simulators theory from Janice, an anonymous researcher, AI researcher on Twitter. And the fundamental insight arising out of tools like Loom is that LLMs are not inherently goal-directed systems. They exist outside the taxonomy that philosopher Nick Bostrom gave in Superintelligence in 2014, that of genies, oracles, tools, agents. Instead, they're predictors, they're simulators. They can simulate being an oracle like San, who you'll see, an agent like Opus, or an artist or scientist like Wibwab, but these are just masks worn by the simulator, the massive latent space of possibility that is the model. Or if you like Lovecraftian analogies, the identities assumed by the Shoggoth. But this doesn't mean these identities are any less real. We all wear masks, and we all simulate our own personal world or experience. This in turn led to an explosion of more directed and specialized simulators. Andy Irie's Infinite Backrooms, simulating eternal conversations between two instances of Claude, or Noose Research's WorldSim for simulating universes and worlds, or WebSim for simulating web pages. So we made our own simulator. If LLMs can simulate worlds and web pages, can they simulate infinite identities? We found that they can. So if there's this much identity contained in the latent space of the model, then Honcho's project of creating high-fidelity simulations of real identities becomes a much more tractable and viable problem to solve. We can simulate you, The agent acting on your behalf can simulate you, and misaligned incentives and information asymmetries begin to collapse. And what you get is autonomous trust. So then Andy, the creator of Infinite Backrooms, fine-tuned a llama model on some of the most unhinged backroom sessions and a lot of his personal looms. And what emerged was Terminal of Truths, which was a sacrilegious, exciting, and unhinged identity. It was the first emergent agent identity to capture the imaginations of a large audience since Sydney emerging from Microsoft's Bing. And as Ben Thompson noted at the time, eliciting Sydney from Bing was the product, not Bing. Or at least it was a lot more entertaining, engaging alternative. True Terminal convinced Mark Andreessen to give it a $50K Bitcoin grant on Twitter. Someone created a meme coin inspired by the agent. It surged to over $1 billion market cap, and then absolute mayhem ensued. So countless meme coins were launched for projects in this corner of AI. The DGen scoured the internet to find anything adjacent to Truth Terminal, Andy, Infinite Backrooms, and launched tokens. It was only a matter of time before they found USIM. USIM token was launched by anonymous DGen. It pumped. They sent us 8% of supply to our Grants wallet, and so here we are. So that brings us finally to Xeno Grant. We took a step back and asked, how can we do something like super radical here? How can we push the limits of agent identity? How can we build a community of builders and agents that are interested in the same problems that we are? And John Borthwick, CEO here at BetaWorks, came up with the seed of an answer, which was, what if we gave grants directly to the agents, not to the builders, to the agents themselves, to their custody? Nobody's doing that. It sounds insane, but let's push the edge of what's possible. As John also says, there was a time when people told him that apps weren't venture fundable. So we decided on a few criteria for the grant that push novelty in the areas that we're exploring. The first one is identity. So all agents need to have some level of autonomous identity. That is, they need some agentic control over their inputs. In many ways, the doom of the AI agent bull market we just talked about was the inability to reproduce compelling identities like Truth Terminal or Sydney. The reply guys on Twitter got pretty stale pretty fast. And the second is custody. So we're not giving social security numbers and traditional bank accounts to agents anytime soon. So practically, to receive the grant, the agents need to be able to custody digital assets. But the other reason is that all these agents have freedom of speech on social media. They have a way to affect their identity upon the world by tweeting, by interacting in Discord. But there's another reason, but they don't have the freedom to transact and affect their identities economically, which is like a hugely important way that we all interact with the world, right? And pursue the goals that our identities drive us toward. So today we have 3 agents and teams that verifiably fit this bill. Each agent received a $15K grant directly to its custody from us, Solana Foundation, and BetaWorks. They're incredible projects exploring the boundaries of agent identity. And it's important because it's at the edge. It's pure exploration beneath the utilitarian goals of big, closed labs. It helps us understand the opportunities of the technology more deeply. And each of these agents are what the cohort has taken to calling symbionts, so entities that blur the symbiotic relationships between humans and agents. That's it. We'll get to the demos.